No, it's the French way. You just have mistresses. Like the president has a secondary family.
Here's a question, actually, too. Does the concubine visa still exist?
I asked for your burning immigration questions on Threads last night because I'm interviewing Daniel Tostado again today to see if I have some questions of my own, actually, given how things are going in the world right now, but immigration questions from a French immigration lawyer that I'll be shooting. If you're not following me on Threads, that's okay. I barely use it anyways, but I do pop on there occasionally, and there were a lot of questions on there. So we're also sandwiching it between two patron-voted places. One we tried to get to a week or two ago. We're going to try again today, and breakfast. Sandwich was a pun, by the way.
The place was Contrast. I've been there before, and I hesitate to put them in the guide. Not because they're not good. I had the shakshuka. It was very nice. The coffee was really nice, too. I think it's kind of just a vibe is a little bit, not quite what I'm aiming for in the guide, but if you're in the neighborhood and you're looking for a little bit of breakfast, you won't be disappointed. They're really nice. So I'm going to share it with you here in the vlog because I feel like I ate well. But it's missing something. I don't know exactly what it is. And if I can put my finger on it, I'll tell you. But it's definitely not bad. Daniel is an immigration lawyer. We did one video before, which I will link to if you'd like to check that out and ask some questions. But as things have also evolved, we were just talking on your podcast about the America we left behind, how it's changed, how it's a different place, and we've been gone for a long time. So the ideas we have in our head, and I think a lot of times we ascribe cultural changes, contrast between countries and so forth, might run afoul of being a little outdated sometimes. Do you ever feel that, or no?
I think it cuts both ways in a certain sense, because there's an image of America that maybe it's become a rosier image of like customer service, what have you, that we have. But conversely, for Americans ready to move to France, their image of France is the Emily in Paris version of France. It's also, Midnight in Paris.
Yeah.
It's this thing that never truly existed either.
Yeah.
And so I think we're all just kind of at our crosshairs in terms of imagining the place we come from that didn't exist, moving to the country that doesn't exist either.
So we're all kind of living in our own little fantasies. Honestly, to be fair, living in fantasy sounds a little bit better than the real world half the time.
Yeah.
On those notes, we do have some questions, but the first one I wanted to lead with was one I already asked you offline.
Yeah.
And then it's that question of like, so I've become French. This is a question for people that are aspiring to become French or maybe have already done it. Does that extend any possibilities to my family, to people outside myself? Can I bring somebody here, or does it actually mean anything in an immigration context?
If you become French and then you get married, you can sponsor a spouse. They would get VPF, Vie Privée et Familiale, private family life.
Yeah.
If you have minor kids, they can get citizenship through you. But other than that, no. Like for your siblings or your elderly parents, for elderly parents to come in, that if they've got a French kid, there's not too many of your followers that fit into that niche, but I see it. There is a category called ascendant à charge. So it's when you've got a parent, but they're financially dependent on the French national. And if you don't have means of justifying that, it's the same thing. Long-stay visitor visa, even for the parents of French national.
I was interested about that too, because my sister was like, can dad move over? I guess not. You're on your own, dad, because he's not financially dependent on me.
Right, no, and that would require you like wire transferring money, like 18,000 euros to him, like annually, to like take care of his needs.
Man, I got a lot of transfers to get on top of here. Holy cow! The big one for Rob's journeys is, can you work remotely on a VLSTS visa? Because he knows that you asked the French government about this, and he's very curious to see what's happening.
Yeah.
On that front.
So
this is a retirement question, right?
No, it's a non-retirement question.
Oh, it's a non-retirement
It's effectively
question.
for people that are thinking about the long-stay visitor visa, but are looking to keep on actively working in some manner.
Okay.
So I have to be. My accountants keep telling me to be as careful as I can when I answer this question.
Okay.
So there's emails from their consulate and the prefecture saying yes, you can.
Yeah.
There's emails from the tax office saying no, you cannot.
Yeah.
So the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing within the French government. So the same day that we met, or the day after we met back in December, we went to the Assemblée Nationale and spoke with the deputy. We're still waiting for their answer to say, listen, we need you to pose a question au gouvernement. We need you to have the Ministry of the Interior and the fiscal authorities clarify this, because we can't keep on existing in this legal gray area where one part of the government says yes, you can, and one part of the government says no, you cannot. If you look at the track record, the case law, no one has gotten in trouble for it yet. So you could say that if no one's gotten in trouble for it, then it is, tacitly tolerated or authorized or what have you.
Yeah.
But that's not a good guarantee for the future, which is why we need to have once and for all clarity on this.
No, that's really important. I actually was looking at restructuring my business. We've been planning for the last year, and then the reason that it was good was a little bit of a gray area loophole where like, this is a really good thing to take advantage of. On the call, we're like, let's pull the trigger. He was like, actually, let's wait.
Yeah.
Because like things are changing really quickly. So I totally understand that desire to stay out of a gray area
Yeah.
for fear that it closes around you in in the incorrect direction.
Yeah.
Like a portal closing and you're on the wrong side of it, basically.
And I think there's two other things to say, right? So like Brexit happened, the vote, they can correct me online, but I think it was 2014 was when the vote happened.
Yeah.
And then they finally had the final closing of when you're able to file for a post-Brexit card in September of 2021.
Yeah.
So like that's the pace at which things move. So even if one fine day the first person says, I've now gotten in trouble for this visitor visa for teleworking, there's tens of thousands of people in that situation. So then for the French government to say, okay, with all these people, we'll give you a way to kind of pivot off of that, that would take years for them to implement. So
you're probably going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm assuming based off of prior experiences, that's
I think
what
it was
I would
2016,
assume.
wasn't it?
Was it 2016?
Brexit, the vote, yeah.
Okay.
5 years though. You got 5 years.
We'll reiterate that part.
If
And the
you're
Brexit
British.
vote.
And they might be coming back.
Yeah, the Brexit vote was 2016, as we all know.
Yeah, as we all know. Here is a retirement question
Yeah.
for someone who's wanting to retire in France. She's a French teacher. Hosey.
But it looks German, so.
Yeah, we can go with that. Hosey.
Hosey.
So Hosey is wondering if her U.S. pension will only be taxed by the U.S. And her 401k withdrawals, because is there any situation where she would have to pay French taxes on her American retirement?
Great question. So there's a big, beautiful Franco-American tax treaty, and that protects us as Americans moving abroad. And like, let's say you move to Italy, they do want to tax your pension, versus here in France, they don't. So it's super interesting for an American to move to France because we're not getting hit with double taxation, and what stays on the U.S. side is Social Security, which is say pension, dividends, and rent. If they're U.S. based, then we're not having to pay income tax on them here in France.
That is good to know. All right.
Now you know.
That was
Now you
a
know,
good
Hosey.
answer. Yeah, now you know, Hosey. Hosey.
How's about that?
How's about that? Pun of the Year award. If you buy a very inexpensive property anywhere in France, does that at all ease the way into living here full time?
No, it does very, very little for you. If you're filing for a visa category like visitor where you have to prove housing, then that's one of the ways of proving it. You can prove it by Airbnb or lease agreement, or if you already own the place. And then when it comes to naturalizing, it's a good sign of permanent establishment that you own property here in France. But encore une fois, it's not required to buy property, so I don't usually need my clients to do so.
That was from Kim's World Poor, and props to Regina Hope for having an answer in the comments, actually, so that was good. As a retiree from the US, how difficult would it be to move to France even part-time? And imagining that process is different without an employer, obviously, can they still receive their U.S. Social Security while living in France?
Yeah, you don't have to stop receiving Social Security. The way that it works in America is as of age 62, you can start receiving Social Security, but you want to delay as long as possible up to age 70, because the more you delay, the bigger it can get. And I usually don't need my clients to start taking out Social Security early to make that move here, to retire. And then what was the rest of the question?
How difficult is it for somebody who wants to retire in France?
Oh, it's so doable.
Yeah.
France is like the best country to retire in.
Okay.
You got that Franco-American tax treaty. My friend Jonathan Adida, the accountant, calls it the bee's knees for retirees. You're bringing in American finances to a country that doesn't have that high of cost, all things equal, for food or for rent. Healthcare is a human right in France. There's a discussion in the Assemblée Nationale with the deputy that I met about having a flat rate pay-in, because currently there's this weird error where a lot of retirees aren't paying anything for healthcare, even though they should. And all of my retiree clients say, I'm willing to, give me a mechanism to pay into the healthcare system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see any real downside
I
to
like
it.
that. That's actually a more upbeat answer than I expected. I kind of thought maybe it would be hard to retire in France, but maybe that's because I don't expect to ever retire. This is a person who has an expired French passport. Their mom is French. This is.
I would love to answer this one.
Okay, Shantali YGK said that she has an expired French passport. Her mom is French and she got it through her. What did she need to do to emigrate to France besides renewing that passport?
Okay, so that's actually a different question. No, that was not the question.
I want to know the question you thought were coming to.
So, if a person, let's just talk about how French citizenship goes by like descent. So if in America, if we're born, we've got birthright citizenship. If you're born on U.S. soil, you're born American, and that's the end of the ballgame. Just being territorially born on the U.S. France does not have birthright.
No.
They've got double birthright, double droit du sol. If you're born in France to a person born in France, you can become French automatically. If you're born in America or elsewhere to French parents, they have to transcribe your birth within the first 18 years.
Yeah.
And if they do, then you're as French as they come. And if they don't, it makes it really, really hard to ever become French. You have to go through a process called the Certificate of French Nationality, CNF, Certificat de Nationalité Française. It takes 4 years, and the vast majority were refused. France doesn't want to give away willy-nilly its citizenship.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, if you didn't even bother in your first 18 years of life, born in a different country, how French are you really?
Yeah.
They're making it hard to give out citizenship in that way, in the way that Ireland or Italy or Poland does regularly to descendants. France is nevertheless inclined to give out visas relatively straightforwardly. So if a person wants to have France in their life, I usually say go get a visa, but you're maybe not going to get it from your parent if they left in 1956 kind of thing.
That makes total sense. I have a friend who went through that. He worked so hard to get his French citizenship as a result.
Yeah, and I get contacted maybe 6 times a week by prospective clients that are saying, my parent left France in 1944, can I be French? And it's like, I'm sorry, but it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So for this Chantilly person, if they already have a French passport, then it sounds like they already are French.
So
and
then
you just go online.
You
You can renew it at any town hall, any consulate, any embassy.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I don't understand what's keeping you from coming back. Like, you are French, just get that. Do you need the passport? Just show up on your American passport.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Ideally, as Frenchies, we now show our French passport at Border Control and show our U.S. passport at U.S. Border Control.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There's nothing holding you back.
Yeah.
So what was the question that you thought I was going to ask?
All that French by descent stuff.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's good. This is a very practical question for somebody who's looking to get started. What documents do you need to gather? What is your universal advice for, like, you want to move here? This is what you need to get put together.
Well, my very first step, which doesn't quite answer this question, is to figure out on what grounds, right?
Okay.
Is it that long stay visitor visa, which a lot of my clients are going for, or is it more entrepreneur? Because the long stay visitor people need to start lining up housing in France. They need to get private health insurance for the purposes of the visa. Entrepreneurs don't need either of those things. But then the entrepreneurs, if they're trying to come over here, they need to start thinking about what kind of business do I want to set up in France, make a bit of a business plan. So document specific will depend on that. But it's always have a passport, have it be valid for more than 15 months. So don't have it be expiring soon. They're now coming down harder if you're trying to get French public health care on the recency of birth certificates. So if you're going to move in 3 months' time, now would be a good time to reorder your birth certificate.
For visas?
Not for the visa, because you don't have to show your birth certificate to get the visa.
Okay, I was going to say.
For the carte vitale, for health care.
And that's it. Do you have to get it apostilled or?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Still, it's a pain in the butt because in America we don't print birth certificates regularly like they do here, so it's
let's talk about that, because there's
please.
a huge cultural difference between American birth certificates, which are kind of good for life, and French, which are
I was only born once. Why do I need to get certified?
None of the facts patterns changed on this birth certificate, unless they did. But that on French documents, they're living, breathing documents with a mention marginale that they can get updated by marriages, divorce, PACs, DPACs.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to get married in France, they're going to ask you for a recent birth certificate, because they know that in France, if you were married recently, it would show up on your birth certificate. And
they're looking to catch you.
And so they're wanting to make sure there's no bigamy going on or polygamy.
Wait, we can't do polygamy?
No.
Damn, come on. Nothing but bad
Bigamy's
news
outright,
guy.
but polygamy's fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fine.
No, it's the French way. You just have mistresses. Like the president has the secondary family.
Here's a question, actually, too. Does the concubine visa still exist?
You phrase that question so perfectly that like it's so soundbitey that you can lead with that if you like.
I probably will, yeah.
So let's unpack what you just said. VPS.
I know somebody who got this visa, so that's why I'm curious. And I was like, it was a man who got it.
Yeah.
And I was
so
like,
concubine, not a concubine.
Okay.
No, when I first moved to France in 2011, they asked, I had to fill out a form, and they said, "Are you the concubine of a person?" And I asked the person next to me, "Am I a concubine? Like, how do I know if I'm a concubine? Am I in King David's brothel?" So, VPF, vie privée familiale, the private family life. In your normal life, it doesn't really matter if you get married, or PACS, which is a civil union, or you're living together. Who really cares? But in France, and immigration is very hierarchical.
Yeah.
If you're married, you have more rights than if you're PACS, and if you have more rights than living together, which is called concubinage. And so concubinage is the concubin, concubine, so that's what we're talking about here, just living together.
Yeah.
If you're married to a Frenchie, yes, you can get that VPF visa right at the gates. If you're PACS, you have to have 12 months of communal life plus the PACS, which is the civil union. And if you're living together, it's usually not enough.
Yeah.
If it's passive EU national, marriage is good, PACS is good, you have to have 5 years of living together as a concubin.
Wow.
So sometimes concubine can do it, but frankly, if you're trying to use there's no legality to that relationship.
Right.
You could separate it with an email and it's over.
Yeah.
Versus France, to get married and then divorce is a divorce, depaxing is still a registered letter. There's a formality, there's a legal element to the relationship that does not exist with a concubinage.
I had no idea what does that mean, you're a concubine? And he didn't have an answer for me. So
you can go to the town hall and say that you and your unmarried partner are moving in together.
Yeah.
You can get an attestation de concubinage that says, as of this date, we are now living in the same spot. But if you're going in front of the town hall and saying, recognize the legality of this,
then just get paxed.
to get paxed. I mean, paxed is so light, just get paxed
It's
anyway.
very light,
I have no
yeah.
problem with anybody getting paxed. get paxed every day, whatever. Like marriage, maybe that's significant. Paxed, get depaxed.
Yeah, it's fair enough. It's
And that's your lawyer that told you to do so.
That's the best advice you're gonna get today. Lau asks,
Yeah.
should you learn to speak French first?
I think everyone should get as good at French as possible. And as of January 2026, they raised the standards for language levels. For a multi-year card, you have to have A2, which is advanced beginner. For the 10-year card, it's B1, so intermediate. And to get naturalized, it's B2, advanced intermediate. So France wants us to get better, unless you're George Clooney, at French in order to get naturalized.
Yeah, classically now. Can a retired foreigner become a French citizen under VLS-TS visa after living in France for 5 years?
Such a good question. So, you can tell I'm excited about immigration law.
He's super excited about immigration law. This is the right guy to talk to about this.
5 years on that VLS-TS visitor visa. After 5 years of annual renewals, you can get a 10-year card. The 10-year card lets you work in France in any manner, so you could start working in France. They came down harder on us in May of 2025. They're now saying live in France for 5 years and work in France for 5 years.
Yes.
So on the 10-year card, you could work for 5 years and then file for naturalization. The trick of it had been up until recently that retirees could try to fight for and get citizenship. We had a case where a gal retired, wasn't working anywhere, so how can you ask me to work on French territory for 5 years? Filed for naturalization, got a refusal. She came to me, we filed an appeal, and she won on appeal. She became French as a retiree that had never worked in France.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I think that doesn't work anymore because they're insisting a little bit more about it is a Frenchifying experience to be working in France.
Yeah.
Ergo, we're going to be asking you to work in France for 5 years before you naturalize.
I remember when you said that last time, there are a few friends that had lived here for a long time who were shocked by that. And it's because it's changed more in 2025, you said.
Yeah, they're coming down harder on the language level, on the work insertion, and again, except for George Clooney, they're wanting to have a certain idea of what does it mean to be French.
We can't all be George Clooney. George, if
Unless
you're
we
watching.
can. Why not?
I mean, we can aspire.
Who's to say that I'm not?
Didn't he hire a spy satellite? Like at some point, doesn't he own his own satellite?
What are we talking about?
This is from Tiny Nightmare.
Yeah, ooh.
Solid name. I'm looking into applying for a French artist visa, and I can't tell in the language if I need to present a project I am working on myself or I need to be attached to a French entity I'm doing a project for. Like,
Yeah, I'm happy to take over. In the checklist for the artist visa, they talk about if you're going to be employed, like let's say you're working as an artist at Pixel, show us your work contract. But you can also, as a different part of the checklist, say, but if you're not going to be a direct employee, you're going to be an entrepreneur, show us some kind of artistic activity.
Yeah.
So we got it once for a guy, a photographer, who had a wonderful project about the crossover of fashion and cyclists in Paris. So like a fashion book about how fashionable cyclists look in Paris. And that was his artistic project, and that was good enough.
yeah.
I found they have a very high standard for this.
I was going to say that was good enough. That's crazy, actually, to me.
Yeah,
I have some friends that got rejected who had massive followings, huge projects, and but then they were told you don't have a connection to a French, and you don't have a French agency, you don't have a French this or a French that, and they were rejected for that.
It's a very high standard I found for the artist visa, so I'm always reluctant to propose it. But what oftentimes if it's not artist, it could still be doable on the entrepreneur visa.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily artistic per se, but shows you've got a good business idea.
Yeah, okay.
But
also, not to knock on the fashionable cyclist thing. That sounds amazing.
To be very clear, you knocked on him. I was building up my own clients. So I did not knock on my own clients.
Not knocking. Just saying, I'm just I guess because I've seen people jump through that hoop. I had one friend who she got it because she's a stylist. She had a French agency.
Yeah.
And she got it through that. And when they asked, well, how long do you want this for? She just had to show them her contract, which she edited herself to hand in. And she's like, a year? And they gave her 1 year. She's like, oh, I should have said 4.
Yeah, you should ask for more. So the extent to which you can have strong contacts in France is super helpful for your artist visa. That the project can be longer in duration, it can help. It's hard for authors to make it on the artist visa because the way that authors make money, and oftentimes royalties are low, and the project might not be tied to France per se. It's much more doable for painting, musicians, more like the visual or auditory arts.
It comes right back to the question, how the heck did I get that visa? I don't think we'll ever know.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever know, but I'm so glad that worked out. Because I applied on my books.
Yeah?
And then I mentioned my YouTube channel. And then I think by the time I finally sat down a year later with the head of the department, who was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
She literally said, I've heard about you. When she sat me down and mapped it all out, the YouTube channel really helped a lot. If it had just been the writing, I do not know what would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't have a lawyer. I was stressing balls the whole time.
It's a little bit of a crystal ball. Like my job is to say like, will they approve of your visa? It's like based on prior experiences. I think so, or I think not, and so in which case we need to tweak what you're doing, what you're offering.
I think he would have crystal balled me no, so it worked out pretty well.
Or what I would coach you to do is have a very clear focus, a singular focus. What is the one thing I'm going to be coming to France to do? And then once you get the artist visa, or once you get entrepreneur, then you open up. You have a panoply of services.
Yeah.
But at least for the purpose of getting their approval, have a singular focus.
Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay.
If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm sure we'll see Daniel again one of these days soon. And I'm getting a call, so we'll just end this now. Well, for those of you that are looking to move here, I hope that was helpful. We're going to end this with another attempt at Chez Alain. I'm preemptively not excited to wait in line. If we're lucky, maybe we won't. It's just like the lines. All right, let's see if this sandwich is worth it.
It's gotta be worth it.
I think their original location's up there on the left. This looks manageable. Thanks to today's Patron producer, Amy Rothermel, for sending me to stand in this line. Thankfully, it's not too long. We'll see. There's like 6 people in front of us. I'll give you the timestamp to let you know how long it took to get through this line of 6, but there's a line that's formed behind us now, too. It smells good, at least.
Toasted is the way to go.
In the end, what'd you think?
It's mid.
Yeah. Oh, wow, okay.
I've had better sandwiches in Paris. I think it's overhyped.
Overhyped?
Overhyped. Great customer service. Very efficient, but overhyped.
They were very nice. The food, like the quality was good. The sandwich was nice, but yeah, I think if you really want to experience it, you won't necessarily be disappointed. It's definitely nice, but yeah, it was all right. Anyways, thanks to my patrons for sending us to try it out. Now you know our take. Obviously, if you have a different take or you want to go try it and see for yourself, let us know how you like it. And I'll see you tomorrow for, I think, the 18th.
No, it's a non-respective. Oh, it's a non-respectively for people that are thinking about the ones to visit your visa.